Some historians dispute the traditional belief that the Great Pyramid served as the tomb of an Egyptian pharaoh, with an alternate theory proposing an even older civilization as its builders. Elon Musk, in a Twitter post, once controversially suggested that aliens constructed the pyramids. Adding to the mystery, numerous enigmatic artifacts have been discovered within the Great Pyramid. Beyond its builders, the real significance of this structure prompts us to ask, what was the true purpose of the Great Pyramid? The Great Pyramid's enduring legacy. The Great Pyramid is a remarkable structure that took approximately 23 years to construct. It remained the tallest man-made edifice for 3,800 years, which covers a significant portion of recorded human history. Building this pyramid was a colossal task, involving the precise placement of around 2 million stone blocks, each weighing an average of 2.5 tons. The engineering accomplishments achieved in ancient Giza continue to astonish us even today. Scientists remain uncertain about the exact methods used in the pyramid's construction. The prevailing theory suggests that thousands of laborers employed wet sand as a lubricant to move massive stones they extracted from a nearby quarry. These stones were transported across the desert on sleds. Additional evidence hints at the use of ramps to position the stones, although the process of getting these colossal blocks to the highest sections, especially at steep angles, remains a puzzle. Legend has it that the Great Pyramid holds the secrets of the ancient Egyptian pharaohs. While we have managed to uncover some of these secrets, these enigmatic structures continue to reveal new mysteries over time. Exploring the hidden spaces of the pyramids. The Egyptian pyramids, such as those in Giza, may seem solid from the outside, but in reality, most of their insides are filled with a combination of stones, earth, and rocks. These majestic structures contain various important elements within them. Deep inside these pyramids, you'll find burial chambers where the rulers of ancient Egypt were laid to rest. They also held chambers for storing the valuable treasures of these rulers. Additionally, some chambers were designated for the remains of servants and even pets, signifying the belief in the afterlife and the importance of accompanying the pharaohs. In the year 2023, during a project known as Scan Pyramids, archaeologists made a significant discovery. They found a previously unknown chamber within one of the Great Pyramids, which dates back approximately 4,500 years. This hidden corridor, measuring a remarkable 9 meters in length and over 6 feet wide, was located near the primary entrance of one of the 3 pyramids at Giza. The Scan Pyramids project, initiated by Egypt's Antiquities Ministry in October 2015, aimed to explore the colossal pyramids without using invasive drilling methods, and this recent finding was a remarkable outcome of that endeavor. The new chamber, which was unearthed by the Scan Pyramids project, is located on the northern side of the Pyramid of Khufu. Archaeologists found this chamber to be quite puzzling, primarily because it lacked an external entrance. To pinpoint the chamber's location, several scanning techniques were put into action, including ultrasound measurements and ground-penetrating radars. Through these methods, scientists successfully detected the presence of a hidden corridor, utilizing sophisticated radiography. To get a visual insight into this corridor, a miniature endoscope was inserted through a small gap in the pyramid stones, allowing them to capture images. Inside the corridor, there are 2 large limestone blocks, raising the intriguing question of what lies behind these stones and beneath the chamber. Egyptian antiquities officials have expressed that this discovery holds the potential for further revelations. One theory suggests that the unfinished corridor might have served the purpose of redistributing the pyramid's weight, perhaps around the primary entrance frequently used by tourists. Alternatively, it could be connected to another undiscovered chamber or space within the pyramid, further deepening the mystery of this ancient wonder. The mysterious Big Void. This newly discovered chamber isn't the only inaccessible space within the Great Pyramid. There's also a larger void tucked away in the heart of this ancient structure, positioned directly above the Great Pyramid's Grand Gallery, which serves as the long, narrow pathway for visitors to reach the King's Chamber. One of the 4 rooms you can explore inside the pyramid lies a space known as the Big Void. This name was given to it by the scientists who first identified it. What's unique about this void is that it's encased within solid rock, making it physically unreachable. Nevertheless, through non-invasive scanning methods, researchers estimated its volume to be several hundred cubic meters. The discovery dates back to 2017, but since then, the Big Void has largely remained unexplored due to its central location within the pyramid. This poses a significant challenge to the team of scientists interested in studying it. The Big Void presents a complex puzzle. Its deep location within the pyramid makes precise measurements difficult. At this point, it's uncertain whether it's a hidden chamber, an unusual feature in the construction, or something entirely different. One thing is certain: it's substantial and warrants further investigation. Exploring the Big Void more comprehensively would likely require making changes to the ancient structure itself, and this must be done with great care. Drilling a hole might be necessary to allow for the insertion of more precise detectors, but this decision would need to be approached with caution and consideration for the preservation of this remarkable historical site. Based on the available data, archaeologists have put forward several possible explanations regarding the Big Void's function. Initially, some thought it might have been a relieving chamber designed to reduce the pressure on the Grand Gallery below. However, this idea was ruled out after simulations were conducted by a team of experts. The void was positioned too high above the gallery, approximately 10 meters, to provide any significant structural support. Another theory suggested that it could have been another Grand Gallery, serving as a passageway for the pyramid's builders to navigate its interior. Over time, this passage might have become sealed off in some way. There's also the intriguing notion that it could have been an ancient anti-seismic chamber constructed to minimize the damaging effects of earthquakes. This idea reflects the ancient Egyptians' keen understanding of engineering and their efforts to protect their remarkable creations. Additionally, within the Great Pyramid, there are smaller cavities that continue to baffle scientists. These cavities are connected to both the king and queen's chambers and are about 30 centimeters in width, too small for a human to pass through. Despite multiple robotic explorations, these man-made shafts remain a mystery. They represent a fascinating mystery that future generations of researchers may one day unravel, providing us with a deeper understanding of this extraordinary ancient structure. Tomb, observatory, or power plant. Even after about 150 years of Egyptology as a recognized academic field, scholars still haven't reached a consensus on what the Great Pyramid of Giza was truly meant for. Numerous hypotheses have been put forth, each offering a different perspective. One of the earliest theories to emerge was the tomb hypothesis. It suggested that the primary role of the pyramid was to serve as the final resting place for Khufu, the second ruler of the Fourth Dynasty. There is some evidence supporting this notion, including the presence of a burial chamber within the pyramid designated for Khufu. However, some Egyptologists have raised objections. They argue that the Great Pyramid exhibits a level of complexity and sophistication that surpasses what might be expected of a mere tomb. A puzzling aspect that many theories fail to address is the fact that the Great Pyramid is situated very close to the geographical center of the Earth. This geographic alignment raises intriguing questions. If the pyramid was indeed intended as a tomb, how did Khufu choose or discover this specific location? Did he engage in mapping and charting the Earth as part of the pyramid's construction process? This leads to another unexplained mystery. How long would it have taken Khufu to survey the entire planet to pinpoint this location accurately? Due to these unanswered questions, it is suggested that the Great Pyramid might have had a different purpose altogether. Some believe it could have served as a religious center or a celestial observatory, engaging in activities beyond those commonly associated with tombs. The concept of pyramid power first emerged in the 1930s, suggesting that the pyramid's shape could have positive effects on both mental and physical well-being. However, the idea of the Great Pyramid functioning as an actual machine was presented in a book called Pharaoh's Pump, written by Edward J. Kunkel. Kunkel's theory proposed that the Great Pyramid operated like a hydraulic ram pump. This pump worked by using changes in air pressure to force water upward through the pyramid and then out through its small shafts. In essence, Kunkel envisioned the pyramid as a colossal version of the hydraulic and pneumatic water pumps that were later developed by Heron of Alexandrian, a mathematician and engineer renowned for his inventive prowess during ancient times. Kunkel's idea drew a connection between Heron's innovative water pumps and the ancient engineering marvel that is the Great Pyramid, proposing an intriguing and unique perspective on the pyramid's possible function. Following Kunkel's theory, which was tested and refined, it became apparent that the pyramid had the potential to function as a vibrational pulse generator. This concept hinged on changes in both air and water pressure. The theory suggested that when water flowed into a particular chamber inside the pyramid, known as the subterranean chamber via the descending passageway, the pressure would gradually build up, thanks to the inclusion of granite check valves. As the pressure reached a certain point, it triggered a sort of vibrational pulse. These pulses were believed to translate into a consistent rhythm of vertical compression waves that would ripple up through the pyramid's structure. Building upon these notions, later ideas suggested that the pyramid might have served as a chemical maser system or microwave laser. According to this theory, the cyclical compression pulses could have been harnessed to convert sound energy utilizing hollow clay resonators into electromagnetic energy. It was suspected by scientists that the ancient Egyptians might have employed this electromagnetic energy to power various machines and appliances, potentially including high-speed rock saws and other technological innovations. Adding to the intrigue, in 2018, it was revealed that the Great Pyramid of Giza possessed the capability to collect and concentrate electromagnetic energy within its chambers and at its base, hinting at even more possible functions and mysteries yet to be uncovered. Fertilizing the Nile Valley with the help of the pyramid. Given the intriguing capabilities of Egypt's pyramids in generating or collecting electromagnetic fields, a significant question arises. What could these fields have been used for? Some scholars have put forward an interesting hypothesis. They suggest that these pyramids might have harnessed these fields, which are a form of energy like radio waves, but at extremely low and very low frequencies. What for? Well, the theory goes that they could have been used to boost the fertility of the Nile Valley. Now, this might sound a bit unusual, but there's a parallel in other parts of the world. In places like Ireland, there are tall, cylindrical towers similar in some ways to the pyramids. For instance, in Glendalough, these towers have been found to capture and concentrate a special kind of energy created by global lightning strikes, particularly low-frequency radiation. They directed this energy into the nearby fields, helping crops to grow better. So the idea is that just as these towers in Ireland harnessed natural energy to benefit farming, Egypt's pyramids might have had a similar role. They could have used the electromagnetic fields they generated or collected to support the agricultural success of ancient Egypt by fertilizing the Nile Valley. It's a fascinating theory that sheds light on the many possible roles of these ancient structures in the past. Ancient beacon of light. Now let's consider another intriguing theory about the Great Pyramid of Giza. Some believe it had a unique function to release free electrons into the ionosphere, which could in turn create light on our planet. This might sound like a wild idea, but let's break it down and make it simple to understand. You see, light can be produced by any system if it can send charged particles into the ionosphere, a layer of our Earth's atmosphere. You might have heard of the aurora borealis, also known as the northern lights. It's a beautiful natural phenomenon that happens when electrons created by the sun collide with air molecules in the ionosphere, producing stunning lights in the sky. Now, some thinkers speculate that the Great Pyramid of Giza might have had the power to create a similar kind of light show. So how could the Great Pyramid possibly do this? The theory starts by looking at the materials used to build the pyramid. If, in ancient times, someone aimed to construct a system that emitted electrons and generated light, they'd face a challenge: finding the right construction materials. To make it work, you'd need a material that conducts electricity really well at high frequencies. Copper is excellent at conducting electricity, and the ancient Egyptians had it in their toolbox. However, there's a problem with copper at high frequencies. It tends to heat up and melt within a few seconds. So what other material could be used? Here's where things get interesting. Scientists at the National Research Center of Cairo examined a type of limestone called nummulitic limestone, which comes from the Abu Rawash area. What they discovered was remarkable. This limestone showed exceptional conductivity, especially at higher frequencies. In fact, if you needed a material with a conductivity of around 600 terahertz, along with being strong and durable, there might not be a better choice than this unique limestone. As we've talked about earlier, the fact that the Great Pyramid is situated right at the geographical center of Earth is quite remarkable on its own. But let's explore further why this location might be essential for a structure emitting high-frequency radiation, like the one we've been talking about. You see, for a system to effectively emit electromagnetic electromagnetic radiation, especially at high frequencies, it needs to be surrounded by a significant landmass. This is a fundamental requirement known to antenna design engineers. Now, think about it this way. If the pyramid's purpose was to emit electromagnetic radiation that covered the entire planet, then being in a spot with the maximum landmass around it would be ideal. To make this whole idea work, the electrons released by the pyramid would need to reach a place called the ionosphere, which is about 100 kilometers above the peak of the pyramid. Now picture the Earth like a giant spherical capacitor. That might sound complex, but it simply means that electrons at high frequencies can travel through the air with very little resistance. Also, the ionosphere itself doesn't put up much resistance to these electrons. So imagine these electrons zipping up through the air and reaching the ionosphere. And once there, they can basically travel along the ionosphere layer with minimal hindrance to the other side of the planet. However, there's a catch. To complete their journey and form a closed path, these electrons would need to make their way back down to the base of the pyramid. As these electrons journey through the ionosphere, they collide with atoms of different gases up there, creating something similar to what we see in the aurora borealis. So these electrons, after their upward adventure, start their descent back towards Earth, taking specific routes through the planet's elevated points. You might be surprised to know that many ancient cultures around the world have constructed pyramid-like structures. Imagine these pyramids as beacons in the night sky for electrons. With the ionosphere bustling with charged particles, building a pyramid serves as a pathway for those electrons to return to the Earth's surface. This sets the stage for an intense display of glowing light above the pyramid. But how do these electrons make it back to the pyramid's base? Well, they take a fascinating journey through the planet's mantle. Fortunately, the mantle offers very little resistance to their path, so they can make their way back quite easily. Now, let's focus on what happens as these electrons approach the Giza Plateau, where the Great Pyramid stands tall. They journey through caves filled with water and a process called electrolysis. This process causes water molecules to split into hydrogen and oxygen gases. These gases then fill the caves, putting pressure on the bedrock below. The result? Tremors and rumblings beneath the Earth's surface create both a physical sensation and an audible noise. At this point, let's take a look at the intricate functions of the Great Pyramid of Giza and how it might have been capable of producing light. The theory suggests that various elements within the pyramid played essential roles in this fascinating process. First, let's explore the subterranean chamber. This chamber was believed to have a crucial role in splitting water molecules into oxygen and hydrogen gas, a process that requires water, terminals, and voltage. Hydrogen gas was the key player for generating light, so oxygen had to be eliminated from the system. The subterranean chamber's design appears intelligently crafted, with two limestone hills that served as necessary terminals. One thing to note is that the left terminal is wider than the right one. This difference in size causes more electrons to pass through the left terminal, creating a voltage potential with the negative side on the right, where hydrogen gas accumulates. The subterranean chamber also has two shafts, one on the left and one on the right, and they aren't level with each other. Hydrogen, being lighter than air, would naturally exit to the right and move toward the ascending passage. On the other hand, oxygen, being heavier, would tend to collect at the bottom of the chamber. A granite block on the floor of the right shaft would prevent oxygen from passing through. While some mixture of gases would pass along, it wouldn't lead to combustion. Instead, the gases would build up in the caves and burst out of the pit with high pressure, creating an impactful process. To create light, free electrons were needed, and hydrogen was believed to be the source. These electrons could be obtained by pressurizing hydrogen, exposing it to high voltage, or subjecting it to electromagnetic radiation. It suggested that all three processes were used within the pyramid. As air pressure increased in the subterranean chamber, the hydrogen gas became pressurized in the Queen's chamber, filling the southern and northern shafts, which were blocked by Gantenbrink's doors. With increasing pressure, the gas's temperature will also rise, causing partial release of electrons. Copper terminals in the doors were strategically placed to channel electromagnetic radiation from stars into the system, aligning with the shafts. The alignment didn't have to be perfect. It just needed to allow X and gamma rays to reach the copper terminals, initiating the ionization of hydrogen. Moving on to the King's chamber, its role was believed to collect all the free electrons produced in the Queen's chamber and push them toward the top of the pyramid. The granite beams in the King's chamber, made of red granite, contain high crystal content that, when exposed to vibration, creates an electric field, pulling electrons from the Queen's chamber toward the pyramid's peak. The portcullis in the antechamber controlled hydrogen gas flow toward the King's chamber and even regulated pressure in the pyramid. Closing it would prevent gas from escaping through the king's chamber shafts, allowing precise control over light production. Now, let's address the enigmatic coffer in the king's chamber. Its purpose has puzzled scholars for ages, but according to this theory, it was vital for creating high voltage in the chamber to ionize the hydrogen and make the space conductive. Without a high-voltage source, the pyramid's light-producing process would not function. It's suggested that a device similar to the Baghdad battery, or one akin to the construction of the Ark of the Covenant, could have served this purpose. Lastly, we have the 3 granite plugs in the ascending passage, believed to function as an emergency stop for the pyramid's operation. If needed, these slabs would be slid down the descending passage to block hydrogen flow and halt the process. It's even speculated that they may have been used at least once, adding an intriguing layer of history to the pyramid's mysteries. There is a lot of mystery surrounding the Great Pyramid of Giza, and this picture only adds to the intrigue. In it, we see a big, pyramid-shaped building under the Great Pyramid. The pyramid is smooth and shiny, and it sits between 2 tall pillars. Inside the cave, there's a big space, and it's all lit up by light from the pyramid. Even the pillars seem to glow. Looking at this picture, you might wonder about a lot of things. What do these mysterious structures within the cave signify? And is this pyramid somehow connected to the Great Pyramid of Giza? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. A resurrection machine of ancient Egypt. The story you often hear is that the Great Pyramid was built as a massive tomb way back in 2560 BC, while Khufu was the pharaoh. But there's more to this tale that might surprise you. Some people believe that the pyramid tomb wasn't just a burial place. It was a spot where a god king ascended to a higher state and transformed. Others go even further, emphasizing the magical side, and they compare these pyramids to machines that could bring someone back to life, like a resurrection machine. In ancient Egypt, magic known as Hekau was a huge part of everyday life. They believed that certain words and spells could make things really powerful. Even special rooms in temples called Be's chambers were believed to have magical powers, especially in helping women with getting pregnant. Some people argue that Egypt's pyramids were used along with special spells called the pyramid texts to do something truly magical, to bring the king back to life. These pyramid texts were written on the walls of later pyramids and were filled with things about stars, the sun, and myths. So it's no surprise that the pyramids and the places around them were like a big mix of starry, sunny, and mythical elements. The Giza pyramids are kind of like a reflection of the stars in Orion's belt. They all have doors facing north, looking at the pole stars, and they even have names that sound like stars. 2 of the 4 shafts of the Great Pyramid point to the northern sky, where the pole stars live. Those stars never disappear below the horizon, and they thought the gods lived up there. The other 2 shafts aim at the belt of Orion and the super-bright star Sirius. These stars were a big deal in the stories about the afterlife in the pyramid texts. In the time of the Old Kingdom in Egypt, the pharaohs were seen as connected to the star Sirius, which is the brightest star you can see at night. An interesting thing is that the ancient process of mummification, which was a big deal, was based on the 70 days when Sirius seemed to disappear from the sky each year. What's even more fascinating is that these shafts inside the pyramids, which are like long tunnels, actually pointed towards these stars during a specific time around 2500 to 2550 BC. So the Egyptians seem to be really tuned into what was happening in the night sky. If you look at the layout of the 3 pyramids at Giza, they form a sort of diagonal line at an angle of 44 degrees. Some have suggested that this alignment makes the 3 pyramids look like they're copying the 3 stars in Orion's belt, but this alignment would have matched around 10,500 BC. Now there's more to it. The pyramids are also aligned in a way that their main axis points towards the spot where the ancient Temple of the Sun in Heliopolis used to be, across the Nile River. This alignment seems to have something to do with making the pharaoh become more connected to the sun, and it's thought that this idea began with Khufu, the pharaoh who built the Great Pyramid. It's like they were using the pyramids to harness some powerful cosmic forces. The ancient Egyptians had some fascinating beliefs about their pyramids, and these beliefs were intertwined with the concepts of light, the sun, and rebirth. For instance, the Great Pyramid had a name, Akhet Khufu, which means the horizon of light of Khufu. Khufu's father, Sneferu, was really into the sun cult of Ra. He did things like change the orientation of his temples so they faced east, where the sun rises instead of north. Sneferu also gave his pyramids names that were all about light, like the Shining Pyramid of Sneferu. He even started the tradition of making the sides of his pyramids smooth and polished, probably to make them look like rays of the sun. Khufu carried on this sun-loving tradition. He included the name Ra, the sun god, in the names of his children. Ra was a big deal and showed up a lot in the pyramid texts, which were ancient Egyptian texts about the afterlife. People might imagine that the purpose of the unique open southern shaft in the Great Pyramid was to let the sun's light in, making a connection between Ra and the pharaoh, lasting forever. Another interesting aspect of pyramid symbolism is the idea of rebirth by flooding. Akhet Khufu can mean the flooding of Khufu, and the pyramid texts talk about the pharaoh being brought back to life through water. Sneferu and another pharaoh, Khafra, had their sarcophagi, which is like a fancy coffin placed in the ground to symbolize this idea of rebirth through flooding. But Khufu's burial was different. His sarcophagus wasn't in the ground. It was high up in the pyramid, and that's pretty unusual in Egypt. So how could it symbolize a flood of rebirth? Well, Khufu had a connection to an ancient god named Khnum, who had a ram's head. Khufu's name even comes from this god, and he came from Elephantine Island, where the Nile's floodwaters first appeared in Egypt. Before Osiris, another important god, showed up later, it was Khnum who was in charge of the flooding that brought rebirth. Khnum was believed to live in caves in Aswan, and both Djoser and Khufu got their massive red granite beams for their burials from there. These beams were believed to be filled with magic. According to researchers, those open shafts in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid could hold the key. They believed they were used to symbolically flood the burial chamber with celestial waters, which the Egyptians believed were behind the sky. It's like a magic trick where the king diverts the waters needed for his rebirth while still going up into the pyramid. What's fascinating is that the height of these shafts matches the sarcophagus, so they wouldn't flood the burial too much, and they exit the pyramid at the same level. So Egypt's pyramids were more than just big buildings. They were like magical machines, combining their beliefs about the stars, the sun, rebirth, and cosmic waters with the spells in the pyramid texts to create a unique resurrection machine for the pharaohs. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.